Bonjour, good morning, Kwe. Once again, my name is Weena Siwi, and I am your co-chair, bilingual co-chair, so both French and English, for this special annual assembly of the AFN. I'm with my co-chair, Adam Fiddler. He will introduce himself. Alors, bonjour, bon matin. J'espère que vous avez passé une belle soirée hier. Beaucoup de discussions, de travail qui a continué, j'en suis certaine. On a une grosse journée devant nous aujourd'hui. On va commencer dans quelques minutes. Alors, je vous prierai de prendre place tranquillement, mais sûrement, parce que nous allons commencer dans quelques minutes. Et je vais laisser quelques mots à Adam et je vous reviens pour une revue de la journée. Alors, Adam, if you want to introduce yourself quickly.
Good morning again, Chiefs, delegates. It's good to be back. Hopefully everybody had a good rest last night. We went fairly late. I think it was almost 7 o'clock. But some very important discussions that we had yesterday into the evening. And of course, today we're going from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. Eastern. Just to recognize that's to accommodate those joining virtually to the west, where it's a little bit earlier. But we thank you, everybody, for coming back and joining online. We will be monitoring the numbers online as well as the numbers here in the room. So with that, wishing everybody a good morning. We will be proceeding very shortly. We do have some minor announcements, housekeeping issues that we will be going through. But of course, a reminder, we do have the translation, the sign language. We had the quick lesson yesterday. And of course, always very beneficial to be inclusive and to be respectful of our diversities, of our different languages, our different cultures, and to be respectful and, of course, maintain respect and decorum within the assembly to conduct business in a good way. And of course, we had the opening yesterday with the grand entry and the drum, and the pipe ceremony was held this morning, and again will be held tomorrow morning. So with that, we will continue our assembly in a good way, have very constructive discussions, and very important decisions that are being made through our resolutions. With that, I'll turn it back to Weena. Some quick announcements on what's happening today, some of the slight changes that we are making based on discussion yesterday, and the need to deal with a high number of resolutions, and the fact that we'll be making some slight changes to try and get all of the resolutions dealt with over today and tomorrow. So with that, I'll turn it over to Weena to explain what will be happening.
Thank you, Adam. If you still didn't have time to take your translation headset, it would be a good time to do so, because this is a bilingual English and French assembly to respect the diversity of our nations and to find a way to reach out and to feel more inclusive to everyone on Turtle Island. Je vais donc m'adresser en français maintenant. Et si vous ne comprenez pas ce que je dis en ce moment, c'est peut-être une bonne idée de prendre votre dispositif de traduction. Je voulais passer à travers l'agenda rapidement avec vous aujourd'hui. Nous allons avoir, une des premières choses que nous allons avoir, c'est le compte pour le quorum. Donc, on va établir le quorum de la journée ensuite, avec Adam qui fera ça ensuite. Et nous avons deux panels très importants. Le premier panel que nous allons avoir concerne la déclaration des Nations unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones. Alors, il y aura un premier panel qui aura lieu sur ce sujet. Et nous avons aussi un panel sur la protection de l'enfance et child welfare. Donc, on va avoir un panel qui sera très important là-dessus. Ensuite, ça c'est cet avant-midi. Et puis, cet après-midi, je vais vous dire un peu après l'ordre des résolutions qu'on va vous présenter aujourd'hui. Mais rapidement, je veux juste terminer au niveau de ce qui est des présentations, parce qu'aujourd'hui, on va avoir aussi la visite du ministre, du député Yves François Blanchette, qui va venir nous parler vers 3h30. Pardon, oui, c'est ça ici. Alors, non, pardon, à 4h, nous recevons Yves François Blanchette du Bloc québécois. Et il y aura ensuite une cérémonie en hommage au MMIW2GS+. Alors, il y aura une cérémonie en hommage et on est au courant que le ministre Mendicino, qui était prévu à 5h30 en fin de journée, n'est pas disponible à cette heure-là, alors il y aura quelques accommodations qui seront faites. I will now turn in English just to review just really quickly what I just said, but I said that this morning 2 plenary sessions, the first one on UNDRIP, the second one on child welfare. At 4 this afternoon, we have a guest, the leader of the Bloc québécois, Yves François Blanchette, and then we have an honoring at 4:30. This honoring is the AFN MMI WG2S+, and we will lifting up women, and it's an honorary ceremony. We know we are aware that Minister Mendicino was scheduled at 5:30, but he's not available, so we'll have to make some adjustment, and we'll clarify this later. In terms of draft resolution, and yes, just first, right after when I'm done, we'll have Adam that will manage the quorum. So we'll establish the quorum right after. So the quorum for day 2, for today. In terms of resolution, I think it's a good idea. Maybe you're interested to know what is planned in terms of dealing with resolutions. They will be dealt in this order. So we will first deal with draft resolution number 4, and then emergency resolution number 1, and then draft resolution number 5. So these are the first draft resolution that we will deal with. We'll explain a bit later. We'll deal also with the omnibus packages today. It's funny, today the lighting has changed, and honestly, you seem to me like you're in the complete dark. Can you see? Do you see what's in front of you? Or hopefully, because I don't want you to sleep today. A lot of work today. So thank you for being here. Merci beaucoup à vous qui êtes aussi avec nous en ligne. It is much appreciated. On this, we will do we will establish the quorum, and then we will have our first plenary on UNDRIP right after, and we'll deal with draft resolution number 4 after the first plenary. So, thank you. Have a really great day, good discussion, hard work. Thank you.
Once again, good morning, everybody, chiefs, delegates. It's good to have you back. Thank you to Weena, co-chair for this assembly. Again, my name is Adam Fiddler. I am one of your co-chairs for this special chiefs assembly with the Assembly of First Nations. So yesterday we had a process to establish quorum We did talk about doing a test vote, but within the rules, we've identified a quicker way of establishing quorum, so we will be doing that count, and we will make sure that we've included those that are joining virtually on Zoom. If anybody's on the phone, also all numbers here in the room. So we will develop when we will have a number for quorum, and we will be making that announcement in less than an hour to let you know what the number is for quorum for today. Again, we'll go through that process tomorrow. But we just wanted to be aware that we will have that number after this presentation. Of course, we will need to know once we deal with the first resolution, which of course Weena explained is draft resolution number 4, which we didn't get to complete yesterday. So we will announce the number after this next session. And so with that, we will get right into the first agenda item, and I will turn it back to co-chair Weena.
Thank you, Adam. Once again, good morning. Bon matin. So here we are, the first panel of the day, the plenary session on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. And for this, and I wanted to mention also that we have the timer that was requested yesterday and adopted through the rules of procedure. So thanks to the technician team, we have that, and it's going to be up on the screen. And we will start in a good way. And we will put this timer even for the plenary session. And I just discussed with the speaker on this plenary session, and they agreed to be the first one to have this, to use this, and they will have each of them will have 10 minutes, and it will be put on the timer. So we'll test this before it's more stressful during a resolution debate. So maybe it's a good way to initiate this new way to proceed. So it is now my honor to invite on the stage first the AFN British Columbia Regional Chief Terry Teegee. Is the portfolio holder of this file, and I now invite him for his speech on this plenary sessions. If you can please put the timer of 10 minutes up. Thank you very much to you.
Merci. Denisa, Tsekuza, Skaiza, Samoygat, Simahanak, Simawigat. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the territory of the Algonquin people, the Kitiganzibi. Thank Dylan White Duck, Chief Dylan White Duck, for the welcoming yesterday. And I'll be the first one to break the rule and go past 10 minutes because UNDRIP is an important issue that we need to deal with. Oui? C'est bon?
Yes.
I'm kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways.
Yes.
I was put on this file for the United Nations Declaration Act May of this year, and since then we've been hard at work, and also I provided an update at the AGM in Vancouver this past July. Since then, we've really developed a plan, if you will, in regards to developing an action plan similar to what we did in British Columbia. As you well know, November 28th of this year was the 3rd year anniversary of the implementation and the passing of the United Nations Declaration Act in British Columbia, is known as Bill C-41. Since then, we've definitely had challenges, and I just want to preface what we're doing here, because in our experience in British Columbia, there was no blueprint, there was no instruction manual on how to implement the act, and it has been challenging, to say the least, with our three provincial territorial organizations, the BCAFN, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, and the First Nations Summit. Collectively, we work together as a First Nations Leadership Council, and we were mandated by the Chiefs of British Columbia to implement Bill C-41 to align many of the colonial British Columbia laws with the Declaration. Since then, I've had the opportunity to witness other levels of government in doing the same. I just want to acknowledge the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh leadership for inviting me to witness on October 25th of this year, 2022, the passing of a ceremony recognizing that the city of Vancouver, the biggest city in British Columbia, well over 2 million people, passing similar laws, if you will, or ability to implement UNDRIP as a municipal law. So certainly they did utilize our action plan in British Columbia that was developed over 2 years. It was supported by the provincial government April of this year, and it commits both sides of the table, our First Nations and the government of BC, on 89 commitments to align many laws with UNDRIP, and that's 89 commitments over a five-year term. Certainly over those years before the implementation of the development of the passing of the Declaration, there was a commitment for consultation, cooperation, and co-development on how to implement UNDRIP. And I just want to preface those words, consultation, cooperation, co-development, because far too often, with any level of government, we certainly know that those promises far too often are broken, or those commitments are broken. But at the same time, many of those words were fought for by many fights that we've had out there, whether it's on the land or in the court. Speaking of which, I just want to send our good thoughts with our relatives from Quebec and Labrador. I know Ghislain Picard, Regional Chief, isn't here. He's over at the Supreme Court of Canada, and the hearing is today in regards to the province of Quebec's challenge on Bill C-92, the First Nations Inuit Métis child welfare legislation that passed a few years ago, that's being challenged by the province of Quebec. So certainly I believe they need our good thoughts as we are in British Columbia are interveners, and there are many organizations, regions that are intervening on their behalf as well. So as we move forward, we will continue to consult and cooperate and co-develop this legislation and the development of an action plan. In your digital handouts, there was the analysis led to 14 co-development principles, and it's in your digital package. This approach, which simply reflects that what AFN has seen over the previous years with the Languages Act, child welfare legislation, and with the United Nations Declaration, has not been consistent working on the implementation of the UNDRIP Act. The first annual report that was released of this year on June 21st was quite thin and disappointing, because quite simply there hasn't been enough involvement of our side of the table in the development of the action plan. So I'm not too worried about that because quite simply there was a lot of work that we needed to do in the first year. Similar things happen in British Columbia. The first annual report that came out in BC was quite thin and disappointing, but really we started getting traction on our second and third year, and we saw many commitments followed through as we came to our third year of the implementation of the declaration in British Columbia. So we also learned that the implementation sadly is not working. I'm quite worried about this process. I think it really needs to be a government-to-government process where the ministers are actively participating in following up and following the declaration as law. You know, the part of the problem here is that, and we've seen it in British Columbia, was that we're trying to change a culture, we're trying to change the machinery of the government to accept it as law. Far too often, as we've seen, many of these governments work in silos. Many civil servants don't know and understand or acknowledge the declaration as law. And that is going to be a challenge. So it's been over 530 days since the declaration was passed as law. And now we're coming to the commitment of developing an action plan. We have approximately 196 days until June 21st, 2023 to put our input into this action plan. It's going to be a daunting task. I commend Caleb Bain, who's the technical AFN and the AFN and my office, BCAFN, to really roll up their sleeves and get going on the development of an action plan. I encourage your regions to start talking about Bill C-15, talking about your concerns. If you attended the session we had on Monday on the United Nations Declaration Act, there were many questions. And we need those questions. There are many concerns, but there's also many supportive comments about the declaration moving forward. So certainly I hope to hear from all of your regions for the input on the action plan. And I have 30 seconds. I believe that we need to continue to have these discussions because we're going to have a national discussion in February on the declaration. Also on the timeline, I believe that we will have some sort of draft. Minister Lametti will be here tomorrow. Minister Lametti did present to my caucus room yesterday, and we talked about the United Nations Declaration and the implementation of the Act, and there are some drafting of the action plan already. We certainly know that the Métis have their position, and so do the Inuit. So we need to put our comments, our ideas of what an action plan would look like, and I believe there will be some sort of draft by February, and hopefully by June 21st of next year that we have a full comprehensive action plan that certainly represents our First Nations here in this country. I did come back from COP27, the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change. I had many questions there, not only about British Columbia, about Canada, because many countries are very curious and are maybe somewhat envious that we do have laws that recognize the United Nations Declaration here in this country and my province, British Columbia, and wanting to know more. There are other countries that are talking about implementing and aligning laws with them on DRIP, in particular New Zealand, and certainly the plan is to meet with them as well. The other piece to this is to bring on board more capacity and more help over the next 196 days to bring into the AFN and perhaps a more bigger team and facilitator. Oui? So that's my comments, and Caleb is up next for more comments about the resolutions. We do have some resolutions. Masaicho.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much, Regional Chief. And just want to make sure that the timer was not, it was just to get, it was just a tool because, and a Regional Chief, it was right. We have 30 minutes scheduled for this plenary, and they will handle it the way they want. So it's just a tool for them, the timer for this. There is no strict timer. So thank you very much. And I will now invite Caleb Ben. He is he will give a technical update on the action plan and recently passed resolution. So he'll speak about it more. So thank you very much, Caleb. To you.
Okay, so I think the presentation is on the screen. But my name is Caleb Bain. I'm Etchedanin Danizam from the western edge of Treaty 8. Masicho to the drum, the Knowledge Keepers. Knowledge Keeper Lawrence Coutre opened us up yesterday and the day before at the Chiefs Committee. Masicho to the National Chief, Regional Chiefs. It's such an honor to be here with you and to be in front of you, leadership. Masicho to the Giddigan Zibi and those who welcomed us. I think this might be the wrong presentation, which is unfortunate. But c'est la vie. I gather there is a, is there a clicker? What? Where is the clicker?
Oh,
Oh, there we go. Wow. Okay, well, I'll go through. So, Resolution 17, 2021 obliges myself and Regional Chief to provide an update to you, leadership, at every national gathering. And so my attempt will be to give you an update on the current state of play, the current situation regarding the UN Declaration and Implementation Act at the federal level, brief you on the recently passed resolutions germane to the UN Declaration, and then give you some consideration of forthcoming resolutions that will be going to you for discussion. At the end, I'll also point out that we do have a situation where a lot of these resolutions are bundled, so I understand, and I'll look to the Resolutions Committee, I understand that the movers and seconders have consented to, this is interesting, to having an omnibus passage of these resolutions. But I'll just go through this fairly quickly. So, 8 minutes, 20 seconds. So, first of all, I'm not going to read the slides, but the Department of Justice leads the work in the federal family on the UN Declaration. This was fought for very strongly because we felt that the Department of Justice was the appropriate entity to engage with the laws and the policies of Canada, both historically and on a go-forward basis. You'll note the language, just point out, Canada must take all measures necessary. That is very strong language. It's in the legislation, and it creates a positive obligation, in our view, on Canada to ensure that its existing and future laws and policies are in alignment and congruence with the UN Declaration. As Regional Chief TG mentioned, and this is in your digital packages, AFN has developed a position paper on just how co-development might work with the AFN in our experience with C91, C92, C15, successes and failures. And there's been a lot of challenges. Accountability is a core structure in the UN Declaration. So again, as Regional Chief TG mentioned, on June 21st, Canada tabled its first annual report, the first report of its kind in Canadian history, which documented Canada's attempts thus far to implement the UN Declaration. This parallels what's being done in BC with their annual reporting process. In essence, the annual reporting process is a mechanism to ensure that Canada has to faithfully articulate what it's doing to implement the UN Declaration. And I would suggest to all of you as leadership Where there are failures, where there are challenges, where you don't see the implementation in your processes, in your negotiations, in your litigation, in your realities, it would be good to kind of counter and add to that annual reporting process. The other point is that co-development, which is a requirement in the ministerial mandate letter and a component of the legislation itself, requires the Minister of Justice to develop the National Action Plan. As Regional Chief TG mentioned, this National Action Plan will be tabled by the government on June 21st, 2023. We have an active process at play. And you'll see, of course, like there are components related to monitoring, oversight, recourse, remedy, et cetera, which I'll get to. The language in the Act, and this is articulated in Resolution 17-2021, which should be in your packages, has certain obligations. One thing, again, so in addition to reporting out to you, as myself and Regional Chief TG have to do, the AFN also has to hold a dedicated Special Chiefs Assembly on this matter. It looks like it will occur probably early April or late March of this year. We're thinking early April. There will be a dedicated assembly for you, for leadership, to come and discuss the UN Declaration implementation. We also, and this is not seen on the screen, but we expect the federal government to deliver to First Nations a draft National Action Plan mid-February. And from that draft, there would then be discussions about whether or not that draft is appropriate, whether or not it has the content that we look for as First Nations, et cetera. And one of the bigger issues, and for a lot of you who do this work already, AFN is mandated to advocate for full and inclusive First Nations participation and funding. The existing funding delivered to First Nations to do this work was not sufficient in the view of the AFN, nor did it go out fast enough, and thus we're in a bit of a time crunch. So we will continue, and we are mandated to continue to advocate for you to have more resources, more time, more capacity to do, as your people see fit, the work necessary to implement the UN Declaration from your perspective. One of the key points is Section 5 of the Act, and this section speaks to alignment of Canada's laws with the UN Declaration, but in the AFN's view, and this is encoded in our resolutions, this includes policy, regulatory instruments. There's, as mentioned, like there's a massive court case happening right now in the Supreme Court, the Quebec reference, on C-92. There are a lot of other issues at play, and I'll point out to the bottom one there, funding and capacity restraints and constraints. The UN Declaration work intrinsically requires us to have sufficient capacity and time to engage with one another, with our leadership, with our histories, with our traditions, with our laws and legal orders, and that's been a challenge. But Section 5 of this Act requires Canada's laws and policies to be in alignment with the UN Declaration. The implications are massive. What you see here is the timeline for the creation of the National Action Plan. This comes from Canada. And the only point I want to make here is that we are very, very close to a required legislatively mandated process. And this came up actually both in the dialogue session 2 days ago, as well as the session we just had with the Atlantic region. So thank you to the Atlantic folks this morning. The National Action Plan is precisely that. It's a plan. I think, and what I've heard and been advised and directed to do, is ensure that the National Action Plan is a starting point rather than a definition of a process. The National Action Plan, it appears, based on the engagements we've done, has to be simply a way to walk into a process. And we're seeing the same thing in British Columbia with the BC process having its own challenges and slow issues. Again, I've discussed this, but in essence, there's co-development mandated pursuant to the ministerial mandate letters from Minister Lametti, and there are broader engagements happening. I think a lot of a lot of your communities have, I hope, resources and are engaging on the UN Declaration, and those broader engagements are also going to be mirrored by the AFN. We too are trying to do more and more engagements as we get closer to a draft National Action Plan. I want to go through a couple of resolutions that were passed quite recently. This is a resolution, it's in your package, Resolution 12, 2022, that the only point here is that we're compelled to advocate for full and meaningfully resourced participation in all of the provisions of the Act. You'll notice that Resolution 17, 2021 only speaks to the National Action Plan, but Section 5 and Section 7 of that Act also have alignment of laws work and annual reporting. So if you consider the alignment of laws as just an ongoing perpetual process, the National Action Plan, which has to be done quite quickly by June 21st, and then you have annual reporting on all of that work perpetually, all of these things together constitute what that law is calling on Canada to do, and by extension, AFN is required to consider and advocate for First Nations participation in each of those processes. It's not just about the National Action Plan. It's about the alignment of laws and reporting on that work as well. Resolution 13, this is calling for the creation of a national expert panel to identify First Nation priorities, and you'll see at the second bullet there a formal repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. And Bill C-15, the UNDA, that was the first law in Canadian history that ever, and it was in the preamble, it was not in the body of the law itself, and so preambular provisions, not technically legally binding, but significant. That was the first law in Canadian history that explicitly repudiated and rejected the doctrines of discovery and terra nullius. That work is mandated to continue via Resolution 13, 2022, and actually came up this morning in a discussion. There's been legal treatment of that preambular provision in BC recently, and it creates very big questions about the supposed sovereignty of Canada when you repudiate the doctrine of discovery and terra nullius. Again, and these resolutions are in your packages. I'm out of time, so I'll be very quick. Another issue, so the Deschanel decision, Bill S3, there's a resolution 14, 2022 that speaks to our recognized inherent capacity and responsibility and right to define our own citizenship and jurisdiction on citizenship and membership, and address the remaining issues of gender discrimination intrinsic in the Indian Act. And this is an interesting one. So this was a resolution passed on criminal code amendments regarding gaming jurisdiction. And the reason we wanted to bring this to your attention is that this resolution that was passed illustrates how leadership said that the criminal code provisions on gaming jurisdiction are something that matters to us. So Section 5 of the UNDA calls for the alignment of laws. This is an illustration of First Nations saying, I want this law changed, we want this law changed for this reason. This is us telling Canada which laws to change. And there are many, many others. Our preliminary analysis has over 900 laws that impact First Nations jurisdiction. We have at least 120 that are priority laws that we need to engage with. But this resolution illustrates from leadership the kind of prioritization necessary to calibrate how we implement the UN Declaration. And I would look to all of you for the laws and policies that you see as priorities that need changing for your communities, your people, your treaties, your territories. There are a couple of resolutions. I'll go through them briefly. It'll hit the floor. Again, there'll be an omnibus. There's one on consultation for amendments to the Indian Act. The Indian Act is being modified by the government, and I would just encourage you all to pay very close attention and consider how that's going to work. So this is a demand for consultation on those amendments. This speaks, and I think Kel Salem's not in the room, but Regional Chief TG and other chiefs from the First Nations Leadership Council in British Columbia and in Coast Salish territory did some very interesting work with the City of Vancouver, as Regional Chief TG mentioned. This is a call for all other municipalities to implement the UN Declaration, as Vancouver and certain other municipalities have done. So this will come to the floor for your consideration and expression. This was strongly supported in our dialogue session with the chiefs. And then finally, this is another call for support for Dene funding, and I'm half Dene. The point here is that in addition to us calling for support for funding, you will notice that the way in which funding flows to our people and the way in which the government identifies where funding goes and whom it goes to is itself problematic and probably not in alignment with the UN Declaration. So this resolution calls for direct access to funding. You'll see that bullet too. This illustrates us saying, I think, that the UN Declaration and the standards contained therein have tangible implications. And so whilst the chiefs may or may not support this resolution, the idea behind it of structuring our funding relationship has to change in light of the UN Declaration. So this is my contact information, my staff's contact information. I think I'm 3.5 minutes over time. I apologize for the machine gun style. I think you have some time left for questions or discussion. Must show to Weena, National Chief, the Regional Chiefs, and to you. It's a pleasure to be here. That's it.
Thank you very much, Caleb, and once again, thank you very much, Regional Chief TG. And so, as mentioned by Caleb, there's an omnibus package coming up on this matter, and we still have like few minutes, 3 minutes, for question and answers. If I just got a note here that if there is a request for the French version of the presentation, unfortunately, we do not have a French version, so I don't have. We don't have it. But if you had your headset device, thanks to the simultaneous translator, you had the live French version. So. That's the message I had to convey on that. And anyone wishes to address our panelists on this, we have the time for maybe one or two, but I don't see anyone at the assembly microphone, and I don't see anyone on the Zoom. So thank you very, very much to Regional Chief TG and to Caleb Ben. Just the time I turned around, there is one person to each microphone. So thank you for being here. Oh, thank you. Good morning. And so we'll deal with the two questions, and then this will close this plenary. The usual order, I will now go to microphone number 1. We will put 3 minutes up on the timer. And if you can please state your name and your First Nation. To you, Chief.
Yeah, Wajia, Bojogadina, Mike Morris, Nikas, Kazbanakandoji. My name is Mike Morris. I'm a proxy for Chief Brennan Chenault from Wabika First Nation. I live and work at Kazbanaka Lake First Nation, but I'm a signatory to James Bay Treaty, Treaty 9, and my grandfather signed that Treaty 9. So I have a great responsibility. I didn't ask for it, but there it is. And in regards to UNDRIP, at the session we had here on the first day, I made my opposition to UNDRIP very clear. I have to ask the chiefs in this assembly, is this what we're doing? That we're going with the UNDRIP? I see a lot of resolutions that cite UNDRIP, and when they come up, I will have to abstain from all those resolutions because I don't support UNDRIP at all. And I have to ask the chiefs, is that what you're doing? Are you supporting UNDRIP? We should all know that before UNDRIP, there was that Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We were excluded there. So we had to get the separate UNDRIP. And it took 3 tries before Canada could support UNDRIP with this Bill C-15. And with those changes that Canada and the rest made at the United Nations, the original UNDRIP that our Indigenous representatives at the United Nations approved and worked on for I don't know how many years, they were just shoved aside. And Canada and the States are the ones that came up with UNDRIP number 3 that you people are using. Now, I have trouble with Article 46, because Article 46 was not there with the original UNDRIP. Article 46, and you can correct me, tells me that the state, Canada, that I can't do anything about its political unity. I can't do anything about its territorial integrity over my homeland. My homeland, because of UNDRIP, belongs to Canada. Can somebody tell me if that is actually the case? And that political unity that they're talking about, that melting pot called Canada, is that where I'm supposed to be? Am I supposed to be one of the Aboriginal Canadians? I have to ask the chiefs in this assembly, is this what we're doing? Are we going with UNDRIP with everything that we're working on? I think if we want to do something right, we should use that Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you very much. Wajig Dana.
Thank you very much, Chief. We'll go to microphone number 2 right now, and we'll then go turn the floor over to you for answers and feedback if needed. So microphone number 2, please.
Good morning, everyone. Byron Lewis, Chief of the Okanagan Band. There's a couple points I wasn't able to actually make it to the workshop on Monday, but one of the problems that I have when they talk about implementation of UNDRIP, you know, when you look at Articles 3, 4, and 5, talk about the right of self-determination by virtue of that right to freely determine their political status. And Article 4, Indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination have the right of autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs. Then you have Article 5, Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions. You look at one of the inability to actually implement that is governed by Section 81.1 of the Indian Act that is very limiting, and it calls for the Council of a Band may make bylaws not consistent with this act or any other regulation made by the Governor and Council or Minister for any or all the following purposes. What that actually does is very well limits any application from Articles 3 to 5. And I think what really needs to be done is advocating for, you know, the change to our, Section 81.1 of the Indian Act that would state that the Council of a Band may make bylaws consistent with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And I say that this one would be a better model to use because at the individual or the community level, that changes could be made at the speed of what our community members are comfortable in moving, but also be able to actually have full expression of our ability to be self-governing or establish our own rights. And it could be for anywhere in what's defined under Section 81. But as long as that clause stays in, you will not have that the UNDRIP or UNDRIPA being able to be implemented because that will always be something that will limit it because it's basically the minister that will actually determine whether or not those bylaws are passed. So I think it's very important if we're talking about you know, anything where it's self-determination or anything, we need the tools to actually make that possible. So there is a fundamental need to actually change Section 81, and it's not a huge you know, change. It's a matter of swapping out about five words for, you know, just a simple line that recognizes UNDRIP. So I think that's something that should actually going forward if we are talking about UNDRIP and more importantly implementation at a community level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Byron. So I turn now the floor over to okay, and each time I turn around. Okay, so last speaker for this plenary, microphone number 1, please, if you can please state your name and First Nation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Chief Kevin Hart. I'm proxy for Chief Owens from Little Grand Rapids, Manitoba. I want to greet the national chief and the regional chief. I want to thank Regional Chief TG for his work that he did on this resolution and such, but I think what I'm hearing on the floor right now is that we need some clarity. Because when we talk about the pre-Confederation and the number of treaties and our modern-day treaties when it comes to UNDRIP, I know that in 2015, 2016, when the Trudeau government was elected, Prime Minister Trudeau came here at this assembly to make a commitment and promise to do a review of the laws and the legislation and the policies that affect us as First Nations. And I think for us to have a critical view on UNDRIP here, it sounds like some of the room is divided amongst, some of our numbered treaty chiefs, as well as some of the pre-Confederation treaty chiefs, as well as our modern-day treaty chiefs. So on the resolution itself, I just wanted to see what kind of work that the AFN did in this matter when it comes to the pre-Confederation, our numbered treaties, as well as our modern-day treaties with UNDRIP, because there is definitely something different when you look at our pre-Confederation treaties, our numbered treaties, as well as the modern treaty process, especially when it comes to UNDRIP. And when it comes to the laws and legislation of UNDRIP, that affects each of those three bodies directly. So we need some clarification, and more importantly, I think from the chiefs, one of them asked me to ask this question so that we can get that clarity, because it's so important, UNDRIP. Yes, there's some of us that believe that that should be supported. There's some of the numbered treaty chiefs that are very hesitant because what we see in our treaties that were written, when we talk about our autonomy and our sovereignty, those pre-existed any written treaties or pre-Confederation treaties. And we still have our First Nations with the modern-day treaty process undergoing defining that. So for myself, Regional Chief, I just wanted to see how that was defined for us for the three different treaty-based groups here in Canada, as well as how the work with the government of Canada was done on the legislative and the policy review for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Proxy Hart, Chief Hart. So this ends. I'm sorry, Chief Miracle. This ends the discussion period, but we'll have more time to discuss this once we arrive at the resolution that deals with this. We're already behind schedule, so I just want to turn the floor over to Regional Chief TG, and yes, Regional Chief TG, to you for final words. Thank you.
Thank you, and certainly this is why we need more consultation and more discussion, and more importantly from your respective regions, treaties. It certainly is recognized in UNDRIP, treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements that are created by your communities, by your nation, I should be more specific, should be upheld. Certainly for sure, and the work that we need to do is more on that. I agree. In terms of Indigenous governing bodies, and really I think it has to be what we're doing here and also in British Columbia, it has to be distinction based in terms of how you determine your governing bodies. One of the things that we did in BC was we amended the province, not us as First Nations, the province amended their child welfare laws, amended with Bill C-92 and the United Nations Declaration. So First Nations in British Columbia could draw down jurisdiction, and BC vacates that area so we can take over child welfare. We have Section 6 and Section 7 agreements in British Columbia. One example is the Tahltan, who have the ability for free prior informed consent on some of the mining in their territory. So we're already seeing this enacted in BC, and I really believe that that's something that needs to be as a part of this process, and the alignment of these laws with UNDRIP, with federal laws. The way I look at it is it's for them. Like for far too often, we had to go out there and fight on the land in my region, that's Silcotin, and in my relatives, the Elgamuka Stay-Away court case. The province finally came to the realization we don't want to fight anymore because we're going to lose. So what we did, that was one of the motivation factors in British Columbia why UNDRIP was supported unanimously by the Liberals, by the NDP, and by the Green Party and the Independents in the legislature that said, yes, we need to resolve many of these issues with our Indigenous peoples. So I think moving forward, certainly there is a lot of work to do, and this is why I'm coming here stating that we're coming to you. And I certainly hope you have your regional sessions and we come back and we start developing a real action plan that addresses many of the issues that are coming up. And it's really important to have these important discussions so we can start dealing with some of these issues. And Caleb?
Musty Joe, Regional Chief, sorry. Very briefly, Chief Morris, the resolutions in the package articulate AFN's current position. My count is something like 1,400 resolutions passed by the leadership over the last 10 years or so have referenced the UN Declaration explicitly. But the resolutions are at issue, they're up for debate. Our mandate as a Secretariat member in my sector, our mandate is defined by resolutions, so that's the position we have, but I really appreciate the critical view, and Article 46, Sub 1, which is what you were referencing, has a very dark history. The other articles, so everything from 1 to 45 and 46 Sub 2 also speak to other issues, and there is a legal opinion from the AFN on the issue of territorial integrity and sovereignty that's available on the website. Chief Lewis on Section 81 in the Indian Act. The Indian Act itself is essentially not congruent or compliant with the UN Declaration. And that unilateral power that you articulated and expressed and see applied to our people is itself likely not congruent with the UN Declaration. Our preliminary legal analysis identifies very obvious problems, and so that kind of issue would be the kind of thing that should be appropriately brought to the National Action Plan and the review of laws and policies, and prioritizing removal of these racist doctrines and laws with the alignment of DOJ and Canada with the UN Declaration. Like that is the expectation of this law. And then Proxy Hart, good to see you. There were preliminary legal analyses done during the C-15 work. So the AFN website, again, for Chief Morris, I think, as well, on the implications of the pre-Confederation treaties, the numbered treaties, and the modern treaties. The modern treaty groups in particular, and I think there's a number in the room, have like very unique legal structures associated as they negotiate and implement them. And so there was preliminary work done on the law as it was progressing through the Parliament and the Senate. That should be on the AFN website. So if you look AFN implementing the UN Declaration, you'll see a number of papers and legal opinions, et cetera, that articulate kind of what we understood at the time. I will take that direction as direction and consider how best to respond to that question. I'm Treaty 8 from both sides, but I understand we have a lot of history, so I will end there very briefly. Must show for your time.
Thank you very, very much for our panelists and this important, this important panel on our rights. So on this, we will now, I have one announcement to make. The next plenary that was scheduled, so plenary number 2 on child welfare, will be postponed. So we'll get back to you on this. And now we'll turn the floor over to my colleague for an update on quorum numbers. So to you, Adam.
Great, thank you very much, Weena. So again, we'd like to proceed with the agenda as Weena just indicated. The next presentation on child welfare, as well as the Jordan's Principle compensation and long-term reform. Not all of the participants are here ready to go, so the wish was to have it moved until this afternoon. So that'll happen sometime this afternoon. So we're juggling the agenda a little bit as we go, but we will deal with the resolutions for the rest of this morning. But we just wanted to confirm in terms of quorum, we did a count the total count of participants in the room and on the virtual session was 113. So it was total was 113. So quorum to be able to make decisions for today is 57. So we require 57 in the room, that includes the Zoom platform, to make decisions. Now, I just want to elaborate again because we had some discussion yesterday morning and then again yesterday afternoon in terms of what is required for a resolution to be carried. So, we need 57 in the room to make a decision. Once a vote takes place, we went through the rules of procedure. If you abstain, that is not recorded, that doesn't count. Basically, it means you left the room, you're out in the hall, and you didn't participate. You're basically saying, I leave it up to you, the rest of the chiefs that are here. So if you abstain, it doesn't count. So we take the total numbers of yes and the total number of no, we add that together, and you require 60% in order for the resolution to carry. So the total number may not even reach what's required in the room, because we may have more than 57 in the room. As long as we have more than 57 in the room to make the decision, if it's a smaller number, when you add up the yes and no, because there are many abstentions, so including online, including on the Zoom platform. So it gets kind of technical, but we will monitor that. We have that responsibility as your co-chairs to make sure that we have the proper counts when we look around the room, to make sure that a resolution, in order to be carried, has 60%. So with that, we will get right into resolutions again, and I'll turn it back to Weena for the first resolution for today.
Thank you, Adam. And to introduce the next resolution, we have someone in the microphone, at the microphone number 1. If you can please turn on the microphone number 1, please.
Good morning, Chief King, Kias, Sagi, and Nishnabek, Gulbey First Nation. Adam, yesterday, I believe you said there was, or someone said that there were 250 chiefs registered, and quorum yesterday was 127. Is that correct?
So I don't have the actual numbers registered, but quorum for yesterday was 127.
Okay, but I believe it was 250 registered. That's what my notes say. But today you said we have 113 and the quorum is 57?
So at 10:20 a.m., and again, according to the rules of procedure, there's a couple of options when we can make that count, but as co-chairs, we have that discretion. So at 10:20 a.m., the total number in the room and online was 113. So 50% plus 1, that's where we get the...
Well, but how the hell did you get that number? Because nobody checked me to see if I was counted in that 113. So how do you know if there's 113 chiefs in the room?
We did a count in the room. We used the red lanyards, so we have a team of counters that did the count, and by 10:20 a.m. we had that. Virtually, we can actually see, but we did have the count.
Okay. Yeah. So where did the other 120 chiefs go then from yesterday?
I believe the red... We're just checking under the table. They're not under there. So I know generally what happens, and even from 10:20 when we did the count, what time is it now? It's 11 o'clock or so.
Yeah.
I know that there are more chiefs that have entered the room. So that is the rules of procedure. There is a set time where we determine what the quorum will be for the remainder of the day. So that's the number that was developed. So quorum for today will be 57. Thank you, Miigwech, Chief King. So with that, I'll turn it back to my colleague, Weena, to get into the resolution.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. And okay. I just want to refer you to the rule for that. So the rule. Oh, I did. Okay. I'll go to. We'll go to microphone number 2, but after it is my suggestion that we move on to deal with resolution because we have a lot of work before us, and we should deal with the last resolution related to charter. But I'll give 3 minutes to up on the screen to microphone number 2. If you can please state your name and your First Nation, if you're proxy or chief. Thank you.
Regina Crowchild from Tsuut'ina Nation. I got my Chiefs red tag. Anyway, I mean, I'm just listening to you. So if there's 57 chiefs in the room and online, 50 of them abstain, so 7 people are going to make the decision on behalf of 640 chiefs. That's ridiculous, if you ask me. Anyway, my question is, on the resolutions, Tsuut'ina Nation send a resolution advising AFN that they have no authority to speak to our rights and our inherent rights in our treaty. So, how do you determine, and there's other First Nations, Treaty First Nations, who are not here, who pulled out of AFN. So we know that we're in this melting pot process from the government, and my concern is AFN is manipulating our consent as the rights holders on all these resolutions that are being passed that impact our rights. And that's not right, because AFN is an organization, it's not an they don't have inherent rights. They don't have, and they're not nations, but they affect our rights from treaties. So how do you separate that? Do you tell Justin Trudeau, okay, we passed a resolution, there's 100, how many chiefs here today? 127? So how do you tell that? How do you tell the Prime Minister, we are not speaking on behalf of those treaties because we don't have their consent? I'd like that answered, because I asked that question in Vancouver, no one answered me. They just left it. I'd like to know how can you infringe upon our rights as an organization in a melting pot solution when we haven't given our consent and we've served you notice that you do not speak on our behalf when it comes to our rights?
Thank you, Chief. And I think your comment has been made, has been heard, and has been recorded. It will be in the minutes. So thank you for this. Okay, so now we... really? Okay. Microphone number 1, please.
Good morning, Chief King Kiasagi Schnebek. I yield my time to Mr. Ken Young.
Okay, just my microphone, please. Microphone, please. Okay, just want to say that a chief or a proxy can delegate someone, but he gives his time for the full issue, and you already had your 3 minutes. So since we didn't address this rule yet, I'm not creating a precedent here. I'm just doing a small exception to give you your 3 minutes, but after that, if a chief already spoke on an issue, he cannot then give his right to speak another time on the same issue. So microphone number 1, please, 3 minutes.
Ken Young, Treaty 5, Opasco Cree Nation. For quite some time, I've articulated my concerns about the United Nations Declaration. and how it came to be the way it is. Article 4 to 6, nobody wants to talk about it. It was imposed by the owners of the Declaration, the independent states, including Canada. After negotiations were done, the Aboriginal negotiators were told, without Article 4 to 6, you will not get this declaration. And that's the way it was. Instead of walking away, they accepted it. And that was absolutely unacceptable behavior. Article 4 to 6 subjects First Nation sovereignty to Canada's constitutional and legal framework, including its rule of law. It's absolutely scandalous that Canada should now have legislated the UN Declaration into existence without properly talking to the people. There was no consultation of the nature that's required. Consultation, including accommodation. That hasn't happened. Why is it that Bill C-15 went through the parliamentary system and was approved? It's an illegal piece of legislation. It's an illegal piece of work like Canada's inherent right policy on self-government. The 1995 inherent right self-government was passed and prepared by Canada. First Nations people did not approve it. Why is it being used by Canada to say that you have the inherent right to self-government? And now they're using UNDRIP. Unacceptable. Thank you very much.
25 minutes left, 25 seconds. Thank you, thank you. Okay, on this, we will now, it's 3 minutes maximum, and yes, microphone number 1, please.
Chief Wilfred King, Kiosk, Anishinaabe. Yesterday, we wasted almost 3 hours monkeying around with a bunch of nonsense. We've traveled a long way to come to this meeting to represent our members, our citizens, and this is a Chiefs Assembly, and I don't appreciate the chair limiting chiefs speaking at this assembly. We've come a long way, and we have business to attend to, and that's not right that you as a chairperson are limiting chiefs' participation. Miigwech.
Thank you, and I'm sure you understand that I'm also here to do the maybe bad job, but I'm here to apply your rules that you adopted yesterday, and the rule mentions that it is 3 minutes per chief and proxy that come to the microphone, and so everything is written in the rules. And I thank you to help me help you. So on that, and also on another note, we will have other time to speak on this issue, and the best or the strongest way to make your point is to vote against or for a specific resolution. So if you vote against, you're not only coming to the microphone to talk, you're making your point heard. So you'll have that time, that this opportunity will come also. So it's not the last time we talk about this. So on that, we will now deal with the draft resolution number 4. We need to finish the charter's block of resolutions. So and I thank you I thank you, the technician, to put the draft resolution up on the screen. You're not making my job easy. Okay, so it's a bit difficult now to continue. I will ask microphone number 1, please. So we will now wait to deal with draft resolution number 4 because we have a chief at the microphone number 1, please. 3 minutes.
Ted Cusens, Keysco's First Nation from Treaty 4, Saskatchewan. You know, I totally agree with the chiefs in this room. They're very frustrated. You know, the chair, the co-chair, you guys get paid damn good money. There's rules and procedures of this assembly. We respect them. But when it comes to important issues for the future of our children and our grandchildren, we do need a time frame. The UN Declaration is an important issue, very important. The way you talk down to us, and that's not right. We talk about respect. Many thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent to come to this assembly, and when you get cut off, that's totally disrespectful. And I made that point yesterday. When I went to Vancouver, I was allowed 1 minute, and I was laughed out of the room. And I tell you, our regional chiefs sit up there. And I am going to be requesting on some resolutions that the regional chiefs speak to those resolutions, and also some legal counsel. Because I sense something fishy going on here in regards to the process of our resolutions coming forward. We've got to be open-minded when we discuss these resolutions. If somebody has personal agendas, that's not fair to anybody. Let's be honest and let's do some truth-telling and have everything on a table. If you have a personal agenda, you don't belong here. The chiefs make the decisions, not lawyers or anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And just want to make sure that you all understand, I think I'm known for that. I'm known for being very fair, not just to one person or two, but for the complete, the entire delegation, whether you're here in person or online. I'm not there just for one, I'm there for all of you. And I'm there to make sure that we can go through the agenda and feel proud of us at the end of the week. So on that, I acknowledge that microphone number 2, Kelsey Lem, yes, I see you. Kelsey Lem, if we can please open the microphone number 2, please.
I'm just prepared to move the next resolution.
Great, thank you. I'll go to, thank you.
Thank you.
Please stay there, don't go
I
away.
won't go anywhere.
Okay, I'll check with microphone number 1, please.
Anin Kinoya, Zongabwe Dijnakaz, Bizing Dunjabwa, Chief McLeod, Nipissing First Nation. I, for one, am not shy to call things out when things are wrong, and I'm going to do it again right now. And I don't believe it's appropriate for us to beat up our chairs when we decided yesterday on a 3-minute limit. So what I'm proposing is to put a motion on the floor, and we can all decide right now and move on with business whether or not we want to remove the 3-minute limitation on speakers.
Okay, fair enough. I need to consult my co-chair. It's gonna be a decision of the chair, and we will need a mover and a seconder, but first, I'm gonna check with my co-chair. Microphone, please. Okay, thank you. So I consulted my colleague, co-chair, and a decision of the chair, we accept this motion. So you're the mover of this motion. I need a seconder, and we'll vote on this. Yes, microphone number 1, please.
Miigwech. And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that I'm in favor of removing it or keeping it. I just want to do business here. So let's get this on the floor, let's decide, and let's move forward.
Please stay there. Please stay there, Chief. Yes, I need you. Since you're the mover of this quick motion, Kelzilem, do you want to second this? No. Okay. So the motion, you tell me if it's okay with you, mover. So the motion is, yes, you want to suggest?
Miigwech, I would put a motion on the floor to make it clear
Yes.
to remove the 3-minute. And again, I'm not saying I'm in favor of that. I just want to get this decision made.
Yeah, thank you. So the motion would be, do you want to remove the 3-minute limits for speaker and make it unlimited? So the motion is, do you want to remove the 3 minutes rule and make it unlimited for speaker at the microphone? So if you vote for this, it's gonna be unlimited. If you vote against, we keep the 3 minutes rule. Is it clear? Is it okay? So we have a mover. I need a seconder on this. Who wants to second this? To second it, doesn't mean you're in favor or against. It just means you want us to discuss this and vote on this. Microphone number 1, please.
Chief Wilfred King, Kiasagi, Nishnabek, Gulbe First Nation. Again, my point, Madam Chair, was I'm not trying to beat you up here, as my friend has suggested. All I'm saying is that I don't know if I yielded all of my 3 minutes. So if I used only a minute of my time, I yielded my time to Mr. Young here, and he probably would have had 2 minutes left, I believe. I'm not sure. I'm not a timekeeper here, but I think the matter is, and I believe that there should be a time limit for speakers, because I've heard speakers speak sometimes 10, 15 minutes, and nobody else has a chance to speak. But I think that the matter is that when we're talking about very important issues, I think it's the discretion of the Assembly to make sure that the voices of the chiefs are heard. This is the Chiefs' Assembly, first and foremost, and let's keep it that way. Miigwech.
Thank you, Miigwech. So do you want to second this motion, Chief?
I'll second it if it's 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Point of order.
No, the motion, I read the motion. The motion is,
Point of order.
I'm okay with that. We're wasting time.
okay, yeah, microphone. So, okay, just to make sure that the motion is written in a positive way, just to make sure that we all know on what we will vote, just another way of phrasing it. The motion will read, do you agree to keep the 3-minute limits as agreed and was adopted yesterday pertaining to rules of procedure motion that was adopted yesterday? So do you want to keep the 3 minutes limit agreed to yesterday? So if you vote for this, we keep the 3 minutes. If you vote against, it's unlimited. So this is the motion we have. This is the decision we made. This is the motion we have, and I think we will now go to the vote. Chief, is this the spirit and intent of your proposed motion? Chief, at the microphone number 1, please.
Miigwech, I'm starting to regret getting up this morning. All I wanted to do was either support what we had already decided on, or do we remove it? Because we can't have it both ways. We need to make a decision on how we conduct ourselves. We agreed to that yesterday, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. All I'm saying is that's what we agreed to. So all I'm saying is, do we support what was said yesterday, or do we remove it?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, microphone number 2, please.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So, my understanding is that this assembly voted on a rules and procedure for the meeting. The rules were adopted by this assembly, and those rules stated that there was a time limit for this assembly. The time to amend that rule around time limits was yesterday. the rules and procedures were adopted by this assembly. And I understand that some would like to have more minutes to speak to certain issues. But the reality is there's hundreds of us here. If every person was given 10 minutes, it would take us hours to get through a single resolution. Even 3 minutes is a lot of time relative to the amount of speakers we have. So from a point of order standpoint, we already decided, this assembly voted by a majority vote for 3 minutes. It was agreed to by everybody that voted in that. If you voted no, that was your right, but the rules and order of procedure also state that 60% of those voting are the way we make decisions here. So we made a decision yesterday at the beginning of the assembly, as we've always done. I do think that there is room for improvement on the rules and order of procedure. There's a lot of ways we can make these assemblies more productive and more efficient. And I have ideas on how that could happen. I know others, chiefs have come to me. I think some of my colleagues in the Chiefs Committee on Charter Renewal were also discussing this yesterday. So I would say let's take note of what's not working, let's gather that feedback, and let's come back for the next assembly with some proposed changes to make this more efficient, more fair, more equitable. But I'm really, really sorry to say this to everybody, but we have a lot of resolutions to get through. We've eaten up 10 minutes just on this already. We decided yesterday, 3 minutes. We all decided in those rules and order procedure. It was already decided. So I feel that this motion, and I appreciate the sentiment of my colleague, and I agree with him, but we need to get on with it. We already voted on this, so.
Thank you very much, Councilman, for this. I'll go to microphone number 1, but I'll go to mover to make sure that he's okay if we continue as was, if he agrees to withdraw his motion, and this means that there's no motion on the floor. That would mean that we don't have any motion on the floor, and the only thing that stands is what we all adopted yesterday, which is the rules of procedures that contain a rule of a 3-minute time limit. So just to clarify, the mover, do you agree to withdraw your motion? And this would mean that we all here agree that we made a rule and we will apply it as everyone was agreed upon yesterday. Mover, microphone number 1, please.
Miigwech, before I answer your question, I have to say that when we adopt rules and procedures and we agree in assembly of our chair people, or co-chair, that we are giving them the power to follow our rules. But it also gives them power of discretion, which is what my colleague here is talking about. So I have no problem pulling that motion, but I would encourage you, when we're talking about these important issues, to use your discretion instead of the clock. Miigwech.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Just for this, in a way, you understand that we need to be fair. And if what would happen if I say yes to someone, I give more, this one, not this one, not this time. No, this is very difficult for us. So that is why we need a rule to apply consistently. And the thing is, we are not in a discussion, we're not discussing a resolution right now. It was only in a plenary, let's say. So, okay, and this 3 minutes time limit is to give the more chiefs and proxies time to come, just for, not for 1 or 2, like we want to hear the more chiefs that want to come and speak. You're here for that. So I want to give you all an equal chance to speak. You have the right to speak. So microphone number 1, please, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Charles Morvan, the Secretary-Treasurer for Nisga'a government. Got permission to speak from our President of the Nisga'a Nation, and I was just going to mention the same thing, that the rules were adopted yesterday and that everybody approved of them, and that we were wasting another half a day just discussing this like we did yesterday. And so one of the other things that I wanted to speak to too, when we're discussing motions and debating them, it's okay to disagree, because we spend half a day trying to amend motions that lose the meaning of the intent that they came to the table for. And I think people, if you don't want to support a motion, don't. If you're going to support it, rather than spending half a day amending a motion that loses its intent in the first place. So I just wanted to say that, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for your comment. And we'll go to, it's number 1 and then number 2. And so I'll come back to number 2 because I see Councilor, you're still waiting to move it. But there's someone do you want to address the assembly this time?
Yeah.
Microphone number 2, please.
If I can call a point of order and ask the chairs to stick to the agenda. This is not part of the agenda right now. Let's move on to the resolutions, please.
Thank you. We will decide this point of order. Yes, but there was sorry, microphone, please. There was a point of order. This needs to be dealt right away. Yes, I'm dealing with one point of order at a time. I'm sorry. One point of order at a time, and I'm dealing with the point of order that we all heard that was made by Kelsey Lam here at microphone number 2. We made a decision, co-chairs, and we decided that our decision is to agree with this point of order, and we will stick to the agenda, so we will go right now with no other delay to draft resolution number 4. This is a decision of the chair. Decision of the chair can be appealed. It is in the rule also, but this is our decision. So, thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much for all of you here present and in the online. I know it must not be easy to follow, and thank you for your comprehension. Thank you, Kezilem. I know you're the mover. I will ask the seconder to please come in any time now, but we will now proceed with draft resolution number 4. It is entitled Charter Amendment, AFN Orientation, and I want to address this. We agreed this morning during our debrief to read this in French, so that I will do that in French. So this draft resolution number 4 is presented. It has been moved, and now I'm looking at microphone number 2 to see if we have our seconder there.
Thank you very much. I'll go now. I'm the seconder for the resolution. Chief Eric Morris, Tezinclica Council, Nishadani.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this draft resolution number 4 has been moved, seconded. We will now read together the decision part of the draft resolution, the therefore be it resolved section, but I will read it in French. Attendu que A. Dans le but d'améliorer l'efficacité et l'intégrité de l'Assemblée des Premières Nations, APN, le Comité des chefs sur le renouvellement de la Charte réaffirme la recommandation du rapport sur le renouvellement de l'APN, selon laquelle une orientation doit être communiquée à tous les représentants politiques et à leurs techniciens, le cas échéant. Next slide, please. Is there another one? I think so. OK. B. La recommandation numéro 18 de la Commission du renouvellement de l'APN de 2005 a suggéré ce qui suit. I. Et que chaque chef de région reçoive une orientation et des conseils permanents quant à l'établissement approprié de ses devoirs politiques en ce qui concerne les opérations administratives, le personnel et les ressources financières de l'APN. C. La recommandation numéro 39 de la Commission du renouvellement de l'APN de 2005 a suggéré ce qui suit. If you can go back, please. Et en outre, que les présidents de séance reçoivent une orientation et une formation ciblée selon les besoins avant une assemblée. Next. D. La recommandation numéro 45 de la Commission du renouvellement de l'APN de 2005 a suggéré ce qui suit. I. que, en tant qu'élément important de sa fonction d'éducation du public, l'Assemblée des Premières Nations propose une orientation aux dirigeants des Premières Nations, aux jeunes, au personnel de l'APN et à d'autres personnes selon le cas. De plus, que cette orientation comprenne une introduction aux structures, procédures et modes de conduite de l'APN ainsi que des enseignements sur les valeurs des Premières Nations. Next. L'article 4 de la DPA stipule ce qui suit. Les peuples autochtones, dans l'exercice de leur droit à l'autodétermination, ont le droit d'être autonomes et de s'administrer eux-mêmes pour tout ce qui touche à leurs affaires intérieures et locales, ainsi que de disposer des moyens de financer leur activité autonome. F. L'article 5 de la Déclaration stipule ce qui suit. Les peuples autochtones ont le droit de maintenir et de renforcer leurs institutions politiques, juridiques, économiques, sociales et culturelles distinctives, tout en conservant le droit, si tel est leur choix, de participer pleinement à la vie politique, économique, sociale et culturelle de l'État. Je m'excuse pour les traducteurs. Next. G. L'article 18 de la Déclaration stipule ce qui suit. Les peuples autochtones ont le droit de participer à la prise de décision sur des questions qui peuvent concerner leurs droits par l'intermédiaire de représentants qu'ils ont eux-mêmes choisis, conformément à leurs propres procédures, ainsi que le droit de conserver et de développer leurs propres institutions décisionnelles. H. L'article 20 de la Déclaration stipule ce qui suit. Les peuples autochtones ont le droit de conserver et de développer leurs systèmes ou institutions politiques, économiques et sociaux, de disposer en toute sécurité de leurs propres moyens de subsistance et de développement et de se livrer librement à toute leur activité économique traditionnelle et autres. Next. I. L'Assemblée des Premières Nations assume le rôle et la responsabilité de fournir une orientation le concernant, notamment aux nouveaux membres, aux nouveaux dirigeants, aux chefs régionaux, aux jeunes des Premières Nations et au personnel de l'APN, entre autres. J. Cette orientation devrait informer les participants des structures et des procédures de l'APN, des attentes concernant la conduite et l'interaction des délégués et des participants lors des assemblées, des comités, des groupes de travail et des réunions de l'APN, et inclure une formation et des enseignements sur les principes, les valeurs traditionnelles et les fondements de l'APN. On est maintenant à ce que je voulais lire, les motifs. Donc, la partie de la décision de la résolution. Pour ces motifs, les Premières Nations en Assemblée, 1, demandent que l'article 26.4 soit ajouté à la charte de l'APN avec la formulation suivante. I. Le secrétariat de l'APN assure l'orientation au nom de l'APN, en particulier pour soutenir et fournir des informations aux représentants politiques et ou techniques officiels de l'APN afin de garantir l'efficacité des opérations, des rassemblements et des assemblées de l'APN. 2. Enjoignent au secrétariat de l'APN, dans le cadre de l'élaboration et de la prestation d'une orientation, que ce soit par le biais de règlements, de politiques ou de résolutions, de tenir compte des considérations suivantes qui peuvent inclure ce qui suit. A. Une orientation pour informer les représentants officiels de l'APN et autres participants de la gouvernance et des opérations de l'APN. B. Les attentes concernant la conduite et l'interaction des délégués et des participants lors des assemblées des comités, des groupes de travail et des réunions de l'APN. C. Une formation et des enseignements sur les principes, les valeurs traditionnelles et les fondements de l'APN. C'est ce qui conclut la lecture du projet de résolution numéro 4, intitulé « Modification de la charte orientation de l'APN ». Et je vais continuer en anglais, just to make it quicker, so I will continue in English. I will now open the floor for discussion on this draft resolution number 4, and I will give the opportunity to the mover to speak up on this draft resolution number 4, and the mover has up to 5 minutes to introduce this draft resolution. So microphone number 2, please, 5 minutes.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to present this resolution, this charter amendment, which was discussed and presented to the Chiefs Committee on Charter Renewal. I have one of my colleagues from the committee seconding this resolution. This resolution comes from a recommendation, as you can see, from the 2005 Renewal Commission report. We've been using that as a guiding document, given the extensive consultation and engagement that happened at the time and the wonderful recommendations that are in it. But this one is intended to be a very straightforward, very simple, very, as I described yesterday, low-hanging fruit. It really just calls for the AFN to be mandated to provide orientation for new leaders, new participants, whether it's our youth, our knowledge keepers, our elected leaders, whether it's the regional chief, national chief, anybody that participates in the AFN. The recommendation out of the report that we agree with is there's an opportunity to do orientation so that as people are starting to engage in our systems here at this organization, that they get that education and the opportunity to learn. So for example, sometimes people might not know what the resolution process is. They might not know how motions are debated or resolved, or they might not know what the structure of the organization is. So it's intended to be a way to provide that education. In addition to that, one of the big recommendations of that report was it's also an opportunity to educate new participants, all participants, on how we can conduct ourselves at our assemblies, our committees, our working groups, all the places that we participate in, so that we can establish the best practices and those standards so that everybody can feel that they're being respected and included to bring their full selves to the work. So it's intended to be a very simple, very straightforward amendment to the charter that just established this as an ongoing obligation. It's intended to be not too specific, so it allows for that flexibility that over time that orientation can change as the needs change. But we know that the wonderful staff of the Secretariat would be able to help craft that orientation, and then as we start to do it, we'd be able to evolve it over the years. So our hope is that this is a very simple, straightforward amendment. My hope is that we can get through this one quickly, because I know we have a lot of other resolutions to get to, so hopefully it's seen as a very straightforward, a very practical step for us to take. We won't be entertaining any amendments to the resolution, so if anybody does want to suggest an amendment, we don't want to entertain any amendments at this time because this was crafted and worked on by the committee. But if there are feedback on the resolution or the concept, I think we're happy to talk about that after, and we can make further changes later on. But at this time, this is the resolution we wanted to submit at this time. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mover Kelzilem. I will now give the opportunity to the seconder to speak on this resolution. You have 3 minutes. Microphone number 2, please.
I'll be short. This is done in consideration to the use of the chief's time in regards to the work that sometimes is set out by the assembly, and just understanding their roles and responsibilities and making sure that they're given enough information to do their work efficiently and effectively, and I think it's in consideration of that. And so, if I might, out of respect for the time, if I can call question to this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we still have people at the microphone. I was not sure I did hear well what you said, but Adam just confirmed. I know you're asking question, but we will hear microphone number 1, please. 3 minutes. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Chief of Cold Lake First Nation, Kelsey Jacko. Yeah, orientation is all nice and everything, but from Alberta, we don't have a representative or anything. So maybe how do we get our voices heard there? We have good views, but our words are unheard coming from a Treaty 6. That's all I have to say. I just thought I'd state it. Thanks. Masi.
Thank you very much. We will now go to microphone number 2. Please, you have 3 minutes. Microphone number 2.
I won't take 3 minutes. Regina Crowchild, Citizen Nation. Okay, I'm not speaking against the resolution. What I want to know is who's going to conduct the orientation? Are we going to have consultants lining up trying to get into this? Or are we going to use our knowledge keepers or our elders or the groups that are here? Who's going to do that training? Because I can assure you, we're not all at the same level when it comes to addressing our issues at assemblies, because we're not heard. Many of us are not heard at all. Is it going to be about the relationship we have with the state of Canada? Who's going to do the orientation with our relationship with our treaty partner, who is the Crown? I'd just like some clarification.
Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, so I'll just turn the floor over to the mover and seconder if they wish to readdress the floor before calling for the vote. So microphone number 2, please.
No, that's an excellent question, and I appreciate. Sorry, she was asking if I was going to answer the question. Yes, I am. I think it's an excellent question, and I think what's wonderful about our organization is we do have the groups like our Knowledge Keepers Council, the Youth Council, the 2S LGBTIA Council, the Veterans Council. We also have our executive committee who approve policies for the secretariat. So what it establishes as the first step. I think that the next steps will be for the secretariat to develop some, proposals or some ideas. I think the executive committee will probably be engaged, but there's also an opportunity to consult the advisory councils on what should be in that orientation, who should deliver it, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that this is just the first step in that, but I do think that the question is totally valid. And I think it will be up to the secretariat to come up with recommendations, the executive to weigh in on that, and then eventually I think the assembly as well to be consulted on that with the advisory councils as well. So I think it's an excellent suggestion. The main answer is there's more work to do now if this is approved, but it is a really, really good point, and I think we have a lot of resources within the assembly to do that work.
Thank you very much for this. Do you add something to? Do you have something to add?
Just for the work of, like the resolutions, for example, or our direction from the chiefs in assembly, it's just being familiar with some of the work that has to happen. Like when we have new leaders coming in and giving them a broad perspective of what's contained within the resolutions that creates direction for their, let's say if they're on a specific committee, it helps create that direction that they need to be working in, and so it just provides that clarification because it's about the efficient use of their time, because the chiefs got many things that they're working on, not only here but in the communities and at home and on the various things that they're involved in, and so it's the best use of their time, and it helps everybody.
Thank you very much for this. So I acknowledge there are two chiefs at the microphone, and I will no one on the Zoom line. So on the Zoom platform, we will close the speakers list after we heard the two of you. So I'll go now to because we keep the order, right? So I'll go to microphone number 1 and then to microphone number 2. So to you, microphone number 1, please state your name and if you're a proxy or chief.
Thank you. Chief Kevin Hart, I'm proxy for Chief Owens from Little Grand Rapids, Manitoba First Nation. Question I have is that the Charter has always been a guide for us as the Assembly of First Nations and such, and it's been developed since the inception of the National Indian Brotherhood and such. So it's been a guiding principle for us as regional chiefs, as national chief, and of course as chiefs. But when we see the Charter right now and the Charter renewal, and I want to say and congratulate the Charter Renewal Committee on the work that they did, but you just seen how contentious it was when we talked about UNDRIP, when it comes to pre-Confederation, the number of treaties, as well as modern-day treaties. And you're saying that you want to write articles of UNDRIP into the AFN Charter. Well, for us who are already sovereign, autonomous rights holders, we should be able to pen that and define our own laws and that without having UNDRIP there. We should have that same language there, but we should have that pen to write our own languages and write our own laws. You know, they say UNDRIP is a guiding principle. Well, we just heard that Article 46, because of Canada accepting it, you know, that was the only way that we were going to get UNDRIP, was through Article 46 here in Canada. And if you look at it, they don't recognize our rights fully. So, you know, I have a point of order on that when we talk about UNDRIP and implementing it into our charter. The chiefs define the charter. So the work of the committee, you know, I commend them in that, but we have to remember that the original rights holders are the ones that wrote that charter. So for myself as an individual rights holder, I have more power than any other regular Canadian as a rights holder. As a treaty rights holder, I'm a sovereign person that's autonomous, that have rights that you as the national chief and those regional chiefs up there have to fight and protect every day. So that's my question, is that aren't we as sovereign, autonomous people the ones that are willing to write our own charters, just like how we're defining our own laws and such right now? Like,
You have 30
Is there a
seconds left.
dependency on UNDRIP that we need to clearly define here? Because we see that right now, it's very controversial. And it's going to be controversial even when we bring it up to here to the charter renewal. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hart. I guess you might oppose the draft resolution, so we'll get to the vote once we're finished. To microphone number 2 for the last speaker. To you, microphone number 2.
Miigwech George Kwane Kuttigo Pijio and Dotem not Kameganing Anishinabe Proxy Warren White not Kameganing Anishinabe. I did get some clarification from the mover and the seconder in regards to I don't want to go through that orientation we went through yesterday all morning and all afternoon. It seemed like it was going that way again, and it is. To dictate the chief's behavior and how they conduct themselves and how they ask questions, to me, is wrong, because the chiefs represent their communities and their people. And it really hurt me to see that chiefs are being cut off. Regina asked a specific question. You know, there was no answers. There's disrespect there. You know, it was a simple questions. Nobody there answered her. And to disrespect a woman like Regina, who speaks from the heart of the treaty, you know, she should be answered. So that's all I wanted to say. I got clarification here. This won't happen again, to school the chiefs on how they conduct business in their own forum. Don't let it happen again.
Thank you, Chief. So we're, you want to address the...
Just quickly.
Okay, so microphone number 2. Last, the mover is going to readdress the discussion, but we'll call for the vote right after. Microphone number 2, please.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the questions and the comments. I did have a conversation with the previous speaker just to say that the intention is not for the orientation to take up time at the assemblies. It could happen before, you know, during the dialogue sessions, or it could happen outside of the assembly dates. It could happen online. It's not intended to take up time at this venue. It's just that it would be available for people to attend. It's intended to be an opt-in, volunteer concept. And then I think I just wanted to clarify the previous comment. Nothing that the Charter Renewal Committee has put forward since July, because we've really constituted ourselves, we haven't put forward anything that puts UNDRIP into the AFN Charter. The only reference to the UNDRIP is on the resolution and the preamble, but that's because the AFN's resolution guidelines ask us to put UNDRIP in every resolution. So that was the Resolutions Committee that gave us that language. But there's nothing in our actual amendment that puts UNDRIP into the AFN Charter. So that is a misunderstanding, I think. It's the resolution that references UNDRIP, but that's only because the AFN rules state that we have to reference UNDRIP in the preamble, not in the actual amendment to the AFN Charter. So we just wanted to clarify, we haven't recommended anywhere for any language from UNDRIP to be added to the AFN Charter. That is not correct, but just wanted to clarify that. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the discussion period is now closed, and we will now call to the question to vote. So we will now proceed to the vote on draft resolution number 4, entitled Charter Amendment, AFN Orientation. And I will ask a technician if you can please activate the voting on Zoom, please, so online. And now I will now ask the question, just a second, please. Okay, so now anyone that is against draft resolution number 4, if you can please, in the room, if you can please raise your your red lanyards, please, up in the air. If you oppose, against, okay? I need confirmation from distribution from here where I stand. I don't see any raised lanyard, but just want confirmation. Nothing. No vote against. Just want to know the abstention. Is there any abstention in the room? Once again, I will need help because it's so hard to see from here. I see a white, a red lanyard. Yes, an abstention. But I'll wait. Dennis is coming to confirm me. Okay, so we see two abstention. Thank you very much. So I want to ask all in favor. It's obvious. The draft resolution, we know the ending, but just before, just want to go on the Zoom results. And I just want to confirm with you that there is one abstention online. So the draft resolution number 4, Charter Amendment AFN Orientation, is adopted by consensus, no opposition, so by consensus. So thank you very much. Congratulations all. We dealt with the last resolution on charter. And I will now turn the floor over to my colleague to deal with the emergency resolution on water. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Weena, for that. We'll get into the next resolution. It is the emergency resolution that was discussed yesterday, or that was introduced yesterday. It is emergency draft resolution number 1, and the title, it is up on the screen. The title is the recommitment to co-development of replacement legislation for safe drinking water for First Nations. I just want to make sure the mover and seconder are in the room. The resolution is moved by Chief Sid Peters. Chief Peters, are you in the room? I see, yes, thank you. If you can approach the mic just to prepare. Seconded by Chief R. Don Miracle, who is also present, thank you. So the mover and the seconder are present. I will get to the operative clause of the resolution. So the resolution is also on the screen. It reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly 1 direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to call on Canada to cease further development of its legislative drafting and release what they have developed so far on safe drinking water. 2, direct the AFN to withdraw from the Joint Technical Working Group, JTWG, unless Canada recommits to the co-development of legislation in a meaningful partnership with First Nations in compliance with the original terms of reference of the JTWG and the confidentiality agreement. 3, direct the AFN to co-develop legislation that includes, at minimum, A, recognition of First Nation rights and jurisdiction over lands and waters, B, mandatory requirements for Canada to provide water and wastewater treatment that meets minimum national standards, or where requested, the more stringent of the federal requirements or provincial standards governing residential water quality. C, a commitment to adequate and sustained funding, including at a minimum capital operations and maintenance and inspections to address water and wastewater. D, mechanisms to address transboundary waters. E, liability protection for owners and operators. And F, governance structures that ensure First Nations are decision makers in the provision of water and wastewater services. 4, direct the AFN to call on Canada to ensure there are no criminal charges and or penalties against the owners, operators of a public water system where Canada has failed to provide adequate funding for the operations, capital maintenance, and independent inspection of their public water systems. I just want to confirm that that is the resolution in its entirety. It is. So at this point, I will open up. I will ask the mover at microphone number 1 if you would like to speak to the resolution, up to 5 minutes. Go ahead. Microphone 1, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Chief Sid Peters from Glooscap First Nation. in Nova Scotia. And as we know, water has really been a serious issue within all our communities right across the country. And one of the things, of course, is legislation and how important it is for us. We've been working as the Chiefs Committee on Housing and Infrastructure and Water, talking about this, with the federal government, talking about engagement and what we really wanted and how important it was to us to try to look in representation for the whole country. But it was just recently the federal government come back to us and said they were going to continue and move forward on their engagement without working with us together on that. So it's pretty frustrating, of course, as our committee and our advisors advising us and saying, this is the legislation and we're going to move forward without you. And we've seen a lot of that happening in other avenues, but we also know how important water is in moving it forward, to ensure that we protect our people. And it's not only water, it's wastewater as well. So I'm just going to pass it over to my colleague, Chief Miracle, to also add a few comments. Thank you very much.
Just so we don't get bogged down into procedural antics, it's an emergency resolution which was announced yesterday that the executive the chiefs have signed off on this to allow it, so it's on the floor properly. Canada had under a court order until December 31st to get regulations in place. I understand that they have an extension till the end of March, and we need to get this table moving because we need standards that have to be adhered to for safe drinking water. It's about health and science, and our people can get just as sick as anybody else if the system is not up to par. And the Burnside study that was done a few years ago, an engineering firm indicated that a lot of systems do not meet even provincial standards. So this is urgent, and I would ask for the chiefs for their support, and let's not get bogged down into debate. Let's just get on with the business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Miracle, the seconder. So the floor is open. I am going to go to microphone number 1. Go ahead.
Chief Wilfred King, Kiasagi, Nishnabek, Gulbey First Nation. I just want to, I'm speaking in favor of the resolution, but I just want to make a note here that we just finished a $26 million water treatment plant in our community. We were, I believe, the second longest boil water advisory in Canada, and we built our plant according to Ontario drinking water standards, but we had to adopt some sort of regulations, so we were forced by default in adopting the Canadian drinking water standards, regulations rather. But having said that, being on the second longest boil water advisory in Canada, it really impacted our people. But thank God, because the First Nation was directly involved in this process, we now have the cleanest drinking water in Ontario, better than the city of Thunder Bay, better than the city of Toronto. So thank you very much.
Miigwech, Chief King. Again, the floor is open. I don't see anybody at the microphones. We have support for the resolution. I'm just checking online. Thank you for that. I just want to confirm online that we have no hands that are up. Thank you. So with that, we'll call for a vote. Technicians, can you please open the polls online? Thank you. The polls are online on the Zoom platform. Any opposition to the resolution? Any opposition? I see none from what I can see. Any abstentions? Any abstentions? I see none, and looking at the Zoom platform, I see none either. Nobody against. So with that, resolution is carried by consensus. So thank you very much. Resolution is carried. Thank you. What time is it? It is 12 o'clock, so it's time for lunch. So I've got a couple of announcements. Just a reminder, the National Caucus of Women Leaders is having a lunch meeting at the Shaw Center, room 210. Shaw Center, of course, is the building adjacent. You can get there, I think it's through the second floor. Women's National Caucus. Also, just to acknowledge, very important to acknowledge our sponsors for these 3 days. So we'd like to acknowledge the sponsors, the First Nations Financial Management Board, thank you very much for your contribution to assist in this assembly. I will go back to microphone 1, just give me a second. Also HP, War Shield, and Bonterra. So I'd like to acknowledge those. So I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors. We'll be showing a video during lunch. So right after this, we have a video that we will be showing. I'll talk about that. Just a reminder, right after lunch, we'll deal with draft resolution number 5, the first omnibus resolution, and then the second omnibus resolution. Microphone 1, can I have microphone 1 turned on, please?
Thank you, Adam. There is a rumor circulating the assembly that different chiefs have heard is that a communique about this whole water legislation has been done by the AFN. We'd like it circulated, or we'd like an explanation why it can't be. So if the executive could work out at that over the lunch and just give us an answer, so we don't listen to rumors here and there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Point noted. Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody. We will see you at 1 o'clock. Again, there is a video that's going to be playing. That's from the First Nations Information Governance Center, and some very valuable information. We'll see you at 1 o'clock. Miigwech.
For millennia, First Nations ways of living, knowing, and being were protected. Our languages, our identities, and our sovereignty thrived. We were safe, we were strong. But with colonization, our sovereignty and the right to determine our own futures came under threat. Control and ownership over our ways of knowing and being began to break down, creating a void between who we are today and who the Creator intended us to be. Yet despite these hardships, we are a strong and resilient peoples with a proud history and an even brighter future. In this era of reconciliation, a new story is being written. This story sees us taking back what is ours. It sees us exercising our rights to self-determination and self-government. But to do this, we must also exercise our rights over our information, over our knowledge, over our data. In a rapidly evolving digital economy, data in the form of information, statistics, and research is key. To date, Canada has been and is still collecting our data, comparing our quality of life, and planning our futures without our input or consent. We have been forced to fit into a mold that is not of our making or of our choosing. So we are at a loss for reliable, relevant data that speaks for us from our worldview. Our data must belong to us. It comes from us. It connects us. It defines who we are, and it has the power to guide us in building our future in our own image. It is our asset, our legacy. Like all governments in the world, our own governments must be empowered by reliable data to do their jobs, to make informed decisions, and to plan for the future. For this reason, our leaders have been advocating for rights over our data. However, the recognition of our rights over data is not enough. We need to build capacities to meaningfully preserve and leverage our data in impactful ways. And although we have been collecting data, significant gaps remain, leaving many of our communities behind. That's why, as directed by Chiefs and Assembly, the First Nations Information Governance Center and its regional partners developed a strategy from the ground up with the goal of building data capacities that our communities and leaders need. This strategy, our plan, is all about establishing fully functional, non-political, and expert-driven regional information governance centers, one in every region led by First Nations. These regional centers, or regional hubs, will provide a suite of shared data and statistical services to all communities, their governments, advocacy organizations, and service delivery agencies. Leveraging economies of scale in every region, communities and/or organizations will have access to the digital infrastructure and professional expertise they need to govern, access, and repatriate their data, leveraging its power. So what's next? Implementation will be community-driven and nation-based, rolling out in phases. Phase 1 starts now with the recruitment of a dedicated data champion team in every region that will engage leadership and help them define how these regional centers will be governed and what priority data capacities and services will they offer. To build a solid foundation, this first phase needs to focus on the blueprints before we start to invest in the brick and mortar. This work is expected to take about 3 years, with each region advancing at its own pace. Once completed, we will move to phase 2, and that's when we will bring our blueprints to life. Never has the timing been so right and the opportunity so within our reach. Our leaders have been trailblazing this path for years, and the Canadian government has responded with significant funding to implement our plan. With this strategy, we will build our own data governance and statistical institutions, and they will be equipped with the modern capacities we need to hold and use all our data. It will be our legacy for the next 7 generations to come.